Hello, guys, and welcome to the first edition of the Pokemon Online podcast. I'm IFM, and I'm here with my guests, Coco and Professor Oak.
Hey, guys, what's up? Coco here.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm British, and this is Professor Oak.
And how old are you exactly?
86.
Yep, I'm 3. Anyways, apparently we're gonna talk about rain. And I don't mean, like, weather rain, I mean, like, drizzle rain.
Because I could talk about British weather all day.
Yep.
Well, the American weather was pretty bad today anyways. But yeah, Politoed.
Is a dick.
What's so great about Politoed?
Basically, it has advantages over every single other weather starter, bar maybe Abomasnow, who's crap anyways. I mean, really, it can switch into Tyranitar with a bulky defensive set, and burn it with Scald, Toxic it, do whatever. It can switch into Ninetales by basically just switching in for free, and sets up Rain for other shit to rape. That's what's so great about it.
So, what really gives Rain the advantage over some of the other weathers? Because, like most people know, Tyranitar has these amazing stats, and Ninetales isn't that far off.
Ninetales does really struggle against Politoed due to the natural weakness to water and its fairly low stats. Hippowdon also has a fairly low special defense, and Politoed usually attacks using its special attack, which really does ruin Hippowdon. Abomasnow is probably the only weather starter that does have any sort of advantage, as Coco said. But the only problem is it fails against every other weather, and quite often against most of the commonly used Pokemon in OU right now. And that leaves Tyranitar, who has probably the best matchup, if you can call it that, outside of Abomasnow. But it's still really, really hurt by a Hydro Pump from Politoed, and most of the abusers just cannot deal without that Sandstorm being up.
Yeah. and even Abomasnow has some problems too, because Politoed, the spec set normally has Focus Blast, so that can really knock it around pretty hard, so none of the weather abusers can really switch in that well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, really, trying to switch in Abomasnow against Politoed is always sort of risky, because you could even Toxic, and Toxic really ruins Abomasnow completely, because its most effective set is Sub-Seed with Protect, and with Toxic, it's fucked.
I'd just like to take this time to say, use Hail is the best weather.
Well, that's very nice, I guess.
Professor Oak is always right.
Yep, he's the sage of Pokemon, not me. Don't listen to Pokemon Nerd.
Despite the fact that I have no idea what I'm saying most of the time.
Well, whatever.
Well, you pull off the effect that you do very well, so I think people think that you're smart when you're not.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I am rather intelligent. It's just, I don't tend to have such great knowledge of the more recent metagames. Especially the earlier metagames, I could ring it off just like that. But now I just think there's too many Pokemon, personally. And I think it's really hard to try and struggle with all of the things. And I just think that Rain really does make that more difficult.
Yeah, because I would tend to agree there. I mean, the thing is, Rain really centralizes the tier around itself and Sand, because a lot of people, despite the fact that Tyranitar has kind of a bad matchup versus Politoed, they resort to Sand because they simply don't want to use Rain. So you're almost limited only to using weather to actually be able to thrive in the metagame. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck using Pokemon like, let's say, Haxorus, which hits hard, but it's just not fast enough. Literally, every other weather sweeper just rolls over it.
So I do have to slightly disagree there and say that weatherless teams can work, but you will find the majority of them using Pokemon such as Gastrodon and Skarmory and Glisker just to make sure that other weathers are checked, and I think something really needs to be done about them.
Yeah, I mean, like, the weatherless teams especially, they're really limited to what they can use. And I mean, even weathers like sun and hail, they're also extremely limited. So if you're trying to really get variety in, the two kind of play styles you can really play with are sand and rain, which both have a couple different ways you can run it.
Well, yeah, we might as well get into that now. We can talk about rain offense versus rain stall / balance, I guess.
Yep. Rain offense, obviously, you have a Politoed, and then you'll normally have a couple more rain sweepers like Kingdra or a Thundurus, or even Rotom W sometimes that punch holes in the opponent's team.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, rain offense is just extremely potent in the metagame. It usually doesn't have to cover every offensive threat just because they won't ever get a chance to set up or even come in against you. Especially the team that BR has been using lately with Deoxys or whatever. Yeah, trying to set up against that team is almost impossible just because of how hard everything hits.
Yeah, and even like the Pokemon that he's using that don't really hit hard, he's specialized their sets. They work a lot better. Like he's utilizing a U-turn Gliscor. So when you go in and you try to like hit him with an Excadrill, he can just U-turn out of you after you switch, so he gets another hard hitter and right away.
Yeah. I mean, I used kind of more balanced style, but whenever I use rain offense, it's pretty hard to, like, how can I explain this? Just basically, like, beating me. It's just difficult because of how hard it is to actually get anything in without it dying. Like, even Ferrothorn gets 3-hit KO'd by Specs-boosted Hydro Pumps. Like, that's a little ridiculous, if you ask me.
The only problem that rain offense has is that quite often the same Pokemon are used on the same teams. It's like every single rain team will have a Politoed, otherwise it's not a rain team. Majority of them will have Kingdra just to abuse Swift Swim, just because it'll outspeed pretty much everything else in the metagame. Thundurus is also quite commonly used, as it can abuse Thunder, but that's about the only thing that does benefit it in the rain. And if I was to say anything, I'd say use Thunderbolt anyway, just in case. Then you've probably got, I don't know, Ferrothorn or Gastrodon there to try and check other rain teams. And then you've got 2 other Pokemon. That's the only place where it differs, as far as I've seen recently.
Well, and one of those other Pokemon is probably Bronzong or Gliscor, just because without them, an Excadrill switch in means you lose a Pokemon. That's another problem that I kind of want to talk about later. But for now, we can talk about rain stall.
Well, I had a couple more things about rain offense. I was trying to run it on the ladder last night, and I was finding that the only thing that could really shut me down was like a rain stall team, because rain offense does such a great job of really just beating the opponent down so they don't have any time to really recover and really try to get any momentum back, because it's just so hard hitting all the time. And even when you throw the defensive Pokemon in, they still have ways that they can really just screw you over.
So would you say that rain stall usually has a good matchup versus rain offense?
Yeah, it's really like rain stall is, I think, so far from what I've seen, is really the best way to defeat rain offense, because most of the other play styles, rain offense can really get around. But when you have rain stall and they have like Pokemon like Chansey and Subcalm Mine Jirachi and stuff like that, it's
Gastrodon
really hard
as well.
Yeah, and Gastrodon. So I really think, yeah, you go.
It's typically more defensive Pokemon that do stop rain, like you have Jellicent, so you've got Gastrodon. Ferrothorn can check rain. Latias can check most rain sweepers that aren't called Kingdra. And most of those are used on more defensive teams, and especially on Rainstorm. Tentacruel can do really well as well in checking rain offense. But again, it's used mainly in Rainstorm due to Rain Dish. And I think that's the main problem, is that you have to use Rain to check Rain.
I mean, my favorite way of checking almost any kind of Rain is really just pairing Gastrodon with Choice Band Pursuit Tyranitar, because basically your Politoed has to HP Grass, otherwise it's going to be walled by Gastrodon forever, and once it HP Grasses, you can bring in Tyranitar and just pursue it to death. And basically that's how you win the Weather War.
But the only problem with that then is if it's a physically defensive Politoed with Toxic, either Gastrodon or Tyranitar are going to get Toxic and Pursuit won't one-hit KO.
Well, yeah, I meant Rain offense usually uses Spike's Politoed though, that's what I meant.
Or Scarf.
Well, yeah, Scarf is even worse off.
I mean, Scarf doesn't normally have HP Grass either. They normally do Surf or Hydro Pump, then Focus, Ice Beam, and Perish Song.
So, Rainstorm.
You're very determined to get on the Rainstorm matter, aren't you?
Well, I mean, you guys are staying quiet, so what am I supposed to do?
Awkward transitions. Yay.
Yeah.
All right.
And now, a dancing monkey.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Rainstorm. So, how does it work? Basically, you use Politoed. Usually, it could be any variant, basically. Most likely, it's going to be either the defensive variant or the Scarf variant. You slap on a Tentacruel, usually a Gliscor or Ferrothorn, maybe a Bronzong, Chansey, you know, defensively oriented Pokemon that work well in Rain. Jirachi is very common. And really, you just stall stuff out. Just use Politoed to check other Weather Sweepers, for the most part. And you can set up hazards, spin other stuff away, and then eventually you're setting up some sort of late game sweep, either Thundurus or Kingdra or Tornadus, something like that.
Dragonite works really well too. And really the thing about Rainstorm is that it can check almost every other type of team and wear them down and really set you up to just get a late game sweep in, because it's just so effective at wearing things down.
Well, we'll be talking about how PO Rain differs from Smogon Rain and various other things like that later on. But I just want to say that Rainstorm is more common on the Smogon server than Smogon tiers, purely because of the Drizzle and Swift Swim ban. But even then, it's still one of the most dominant types of playstyles. And that definitely shows over even on Pokemon Online, where it's the main way of checking most of the offensive Rain.
But yeah, so basically for Rainstorm, Tentacruel is really one of the best Pokemon out there for it. A lot of people were really unaware, like especially at the beginning of this gen, just how amazing Tentacruel can be, because it has access to Toxic Spikes and Rapid Spin, and now it has this new toy from the Dream World Rain Dish that really helps it to just kind of dominate the playing field. It's really hard to wear it down outside of super effective hits, and it's always going to switch out of those.
Not to mention, I mean, what's important about it is the fact that it can Toxic Spike, and those help wear down opposing weather starters.
Yeah, definitely, because like Tyranitar, all of them really don't like Toxic Spikes at all.
Yeah.
Even more importantly, it can absorb Toxic Spikes, because quite commonly you'll see Pokemon such as Politoed, Chansey, Blissey, and other Pokemon such as Gastrodon that are all weak to Toxic Spikes, and Tentacruel alone absorbing them means that other Pokemon aren't susceptible to the poison. Furthermore, it also gets Rapid Spin, which allows it to remove hazards and allow your store team to store longer without worrying about the entry hazard damage.
Yeah, a lot of Rainstorm battles, like when you have Rainstorm against Rainstorm, they really come down to who can take out the opponent's Tentacruel first, because as long as they're both alive, nobody's really going to make any progress hurting the other team.